Welcome, listeners, to this Speaking from Our Hearts podcast. Podcast is our first deliberate mistake of the day. Podcast episode where I'm delighted to be joined by Caroline Hoek from originally from Holland, and Caroline's going to be talking to us today about taking responsibility for our own world. So, Caroline, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So, tell us a little bit around your journey so far, Caroline, so we can create a bit of rapport, a bit of empathy, and get to know you.
Yes. Oh, wow. So where do I start? Let me just start where I am now. I'm having my private practice as a transpersonal psychotherapist, which means that I don't work with traumatized people that much anymore. It's more about finding purpose, finding joy, being true to yourself and learning where you hold yourself back. And actually, I think it's the result of my own journey, because I started off being very much traumatized. And of course, then I wanted to work with people that were traumatized, especially with sexual abuse, suicidal thoughts, etc. And but through the years, since my own insights evolved and I had these spiritual awakenings, the clients changed accordingly. So that's where I am now.
Okay, so one of the things I find as a consistency, Caroline, when I have these kind of conversations with what I call spiritual warriors, is the fact that invariably we've gone on this journey as a result of our own pain. Would that be a fair comment?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And, that journey that we started out on to essentially start to heal our own suffering, because I always discriminate, Caroline, between pain and suffering, because I think pain actually can be quite good.
Yes.
It's great leverage, isn't it, to change things. And
yes.
There's great learning in it, and there's great progression and growth in it.
Exactly. It can definitely push you forward if
yes.
you are brave enough to look at it that way. And otherwise, it becomes suffering, I think.
Yes, and I think that word, you've kind of just summed it up there, because if we let that pain hang around, then pain plus pain plus pain then turns into suffering. And as we know, there's no advantages, there's no benefits, there's no nothing. That is pure. It will just eat you away and give you nothing in return,
and leave you thinking that you're a victim.
Yes.
And that you cannot help it.
Yes.
Well, that's not in my book.
No. And I think and I suppose the purpose of this conversation, Caroline, is to inspire listeners to say, look, no matter where you are and how desperate the situation may seem at this given moment in time, the key word is it's a moment. And it can be changed. You do have a choice. We really do. And to pick up on a word, Caroline, you used a moment or two ago, and it's not a word that I kind of embrace with any kind of positive emotion, but that victimhood. And we do get embroiled in that, don't we? And then we make conditioned statements like, yeah, but you don't understand what I'm going through. And it's all right for you. And, as if we, and if I can be allowed to talk about my own suffering and darkness and despair, I was in that total sort of pit where nobody understands this, nobody cares, nobody's got a problem like I've got. This is totally unique in the world. Nobody's ever had an addiction before. Nobody's ever been involved in violence before. It's only me, poor old me.
Yes.
And that's what we do, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, I've been there too. I come from abuse. Well, I'm definitely not the only one. I come from neglect. I come from not being welcomed by my biological father. And so, of course, there was a lot of pain. And And at some point when I was in my early 20s, I really thought there was no use in living. And what really pushed me over the edge is that then, and I mean, I'm talking like 35 years ago almost, but I became a prostitute because I thought that I could call the shots. And I thought that now if I would be in control, then my life would be okay. And then I would have money and, you know, so all the things actually outside myself and the fantasy of being in power, but actually it had nothing to do with it. And at some point I woke up and I thought, but you know, those guys, they come and go, they leave, they never give you a second thought probably. And if they do, so who cares? And then I thought, well, I might as well just quit because nobody is really waiting for me to hang around and just be here, my miserable self. Yeah.
Thank you for that share, Caroline. That's some would say. I know, you know, because of the, you know, the kind of dare I say the emotional, the spiritual language that we use, you know, with ourselves and with each other. That's not. It's certainly insightful, and I think the significance of that is. And let me ask you a question, if I can. That was there that sort of decision to become a prostitute, was that based on a deeper need for some kind of love and connection? Was you not in that space then?
No, it was not about love and connection. It was
No?
really calling the shots and being in control. I think it was out of anger.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That need for certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can resonate that very strongly, because when I adopted, and then I say now, looking back, adopted my drink addiction, which cost me so much in my life, and that's what I did, although at the time I didn't know what I was doing, but that's the benefit of wisdom. But I adopted that drink addiction because it gave me a lot of certainty. I can control this, and I did control it. Because what happened with that, Caroline, this is where I really resonate very strongly with what you've just said there. I would tell you when I was going to start drinking, and I would tell you 6 months later, almost to the second, when I would stop. So I called it my black and white existence. So my black phase of life was, right, I'm on a self-destruct mission because I've got no self-love. I've got all kinds of limiting beliefs, all this stuff that had been fed into me as a child about you'll never be any good, and the violence that was meted out to match it, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then when I made a mistake, as people do, you know, what a simple thing, I don't know, dropping a bottle of milk, simple everyday thing that we can do, and it's like all of a sudden this is a major ordeal. And these things that had been planted in my head around, oh, you see, I told you you're useless, I told you you're no good. And then that would be met with more violence, take that as punishment and all this kind of stuff. So I adopted that way of being. So as I say, I totally resonate with that need for certainty, because I think as a human need, we can meet our needs in very positive or very negative ways, can't we?
Yeah.
And I think when the chips are down, Caroline, it's quite hard to meet them in positive ways, because we're at the bottom of this kind of pit as we see it. So what's the way out? Everything's dark and everybody's against me, and everything's caving in on me. Now what's happening? And I think this is what happens.
Yes, and I want to emphasize what you say, like you're almost at the bottom.
Yes.
Of this pit, because what I have found is when I was really at the bottom, I could all of a sudden push myself back up again. And I think it was really needed, because, You know, I make this comparison with my clients that I don't know how you say it in English, but when you start to learn swim, you also do like this, and you stay, you know, above water. But if you try to live like this all the time, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And at some point you just cannot do it anymore. So you go down and down and down until you, well, at least for me it was that way, that when I finally reached just the bottom of that pit, because I tried to commit suicide, but I was found. And then I was put in the psychiatric ward, in the closed ward. And there, the first night already, I had this strange, I was met actually by a very, very kind nurse. And that was already so soothing in a way. And then the next morning, it just hit me, this thought or this voice, whatever it was, came to me and it said, Caroline, since you are now here in this world, why not just make the best of it? And then this calm came over me, and I thought, but that's true. I can choose to die or I can choose to live. And I know I could reach this place because I went down and down and down. So I'm actually very grateful that I did what I did, because I see now in hindsight, it just needed to be done.
Yeah.
I just needed to be in this dark place in order to see some light again.
Yeah. From a personal point of view, Caroline, absolutely. Yeah, again, I resonate with that. But I think then when we kind of make sense of our vocation, our calling, our reason for being life, and certainly I'll say it again, as spiritual warriors, to help and to offer light and guidance to, you know, to those that may be in that position that we've previously been in, because we found a path and a way out of that darkness. And so it's to guide them through that. And what I actually say now is every sickening blow that I took from my violent stepfather, and I observed my mother taking, and this went on for years. These were not one-offs. These were almost daily occurrences. But I'm so grateful for all that, because that's given me the insights and the empathy and the understanding, you know, and, you know, the physical scars I've got on my body. I honor them. I don't glorify them. You know, they don't dictate who I am or what I've become, but they're part of that process that's led me to where I am now. And there's no, you know, we talk about forgiveness, and if I'm honest about it, Caroline, and you know, I'd be interested to hear your views about this, but that forgiveness, you know, that F word, it's not been easy at times to let go of people that's been so evil at times and so cruel. But I think from a mentoring point of view, when you have actually got the other side, you do realize actually it's only I can only speak about my own experience, but I know this is shared with many other people, such as yourself. But this thing that we've got called an ego that holds on to things, this human part of us, yeah, but you must win and you must get in first and don't ever let anybody do that again. And all this, you know, this bravado and this very raw survival techniques, I suppose, that we learn. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's about having the awareness to say, okay, I'm grateful for that because it kept me alive. But that's not who I am anymore either.
Exactly. And that's about choosing again for me. That's really about choosing again. And I was so grateful when I started to read in A Course in Miracles, which actually teaches us that there is another way to perceive the world, and that we are actually projecting everything. So in that sense, it's very good to take your responsibility and see, okay, so in what kind of movie have I put myself in? And of course, I had already been grateful for the abuse and everything. And I know that sometimes people think it's a strange combination, those two words in one sentence.
Yeah.
But, it's true. Because exactly as what you said, Paul, it's so helpful if you can just look at what it brought you, because it also made me feel strong.
Yeah.
It didn't break me in the end. I have great, great stamina. I have endeavor. I mean, those are words I really, really cherish. And so yes, that gratefulness, that was there already. And of course I wanted to take responsibility. But once I could really feel what forgiveness meant, it took me to a whole different level.
Yes. Yeah.
All of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, but this is all my own doing. Wow. So if that was my own doing, other stuff can be mine as well. And then there is this other phase in waking up, for me at least, that actually I don't really have to choose. Finally, all I have to choose is to think with Holy Spirit, to think with the guidance, to let myself be guided every day. And of course, sometimes I just suck at doing it, and because I'm angry or things happen and I sort of forget it. Like what you said, ego kicks in, which happens, of course. But once I get aware of that I'm doing that, I feel, oh, but now I can choose again. Now I want to choose for love. Now I want to choose for Holy Spirit. And I just ask, okay, so what should my next step be? Or even like now I'm in the midst of a divorce, and it's getting a bit ugly for me, at least, because my husband, almost former husband, he's getting very ugly and not nice. It's as if we cannot be in a conversation anymore. After 35 years, I almost don't recognize him. And then I get into this frustration or anger or sadness, or I yell at him, and I get in all those personal things. And then I thought, oh, but now I can choose again, and I can look at him as I want to perceive the world, since we are all children of God. And he is, as I am, just searching for his way to cope. So this is his way. I have my way. And who am I to judge, actually? I don't want to be there. So there are days I can really be with this energy. And it's very, very helpful to be there, not to feel my heart pounding all the time, feeling stressed, cannot sleep. Because there is this faith. There is this faith that we are always at the right time, at the right place.
Yeah. And I love that word there, Caroline, energy, because one of the challenges I have, you said something about this Course of Miracles. And one of the consistent comments that comes back to me, and I'd be really interested to hear if you get this as well, is why do you talk about all this soft, fluffy stuff? It's not real. And my response to that is very simple. And it's this. I have lived a life, and that's why I love what you've shared with us, Caroline, at what I call life's coalface. It's been dark, it's been graphic, it's been real. So I don't come from some, fuzzy-duzzy world where everything, this happens and that happens. I come from a very, very, very real place. Very real, as do you. But, and we've mentioned the word already a few times, Caroline, we have choices. And the choice was made a few years ago that I do know personally don't want this darkness, this despair, this anguish, this hopelessness, all these what is the point? There's no point to me living. So let's end it. Because I've been there as well. So I understand and empathize with you yet again. So we have that as one, which is the fear. That's fear, as you alluded to with your husband, isn't it? He's struggling to make sense of this in whatever shape or form that takes, because that's his story and that's his journey. And we can't do that. As much as we care for people, we can't live that. And that can be a hard lesson to learn, can't it? You know, when we're on this, certainly on the road to recovery, that letting go. Yeah. So what I say is, okay, you imagine a coin, flip a coin, it's heads or tails. Once, doesn't matter whether it's heads or tails, one side is called fear. The other side is called love. And this guy, and I get this kind of semi-regular when I go back to my hometown in England, Caroline, with guys particularly who I've grown up with since I was a kid, and they've seen all the colourful exploits I used to get into with the fighting and the drinking and all that nonsense. Well, you've changed. You've really changed. You're not the same anymore. You use all this soft, fluffy language, and it's like, are you on drugs and all this kind of stuff? Well, I'm on something that's a lot stronger than a drug. Yeah, if that's your label, because I don't deal with labels, by the way, but if that's your label, that's fine. But it is a question of choice. So on the one side of the coin, we can have fear. If you're not happy with your life, flip it again. Sooner or later, there's going to be another side of that coin that comes up that says love. And that is where lightness, you're not looking over your shoulder, you're not a bag of nerves, and you've got a real life, a real life. And the irony of that is that mask that we wore in those days was just that. It was a lie. It was a mask. It wasn't real. It was something that we'd concocted in our mind under the banner of survival.
Yes.
And that's it. So have a choice. So if you think I've gone soft, great. I'm really glad you think I've gone soft, because the point is I'm extremely happy. And by the way, if you still want to step into the boxing ring, yes, we can still do that. But I'll laugh when I'm evading your punches. I won't strike out, because to use that, going back to that energy terminology that you use, Caroline, for me, what I dance with now is people's energy. So imagine somebody's striking out and exuding negative energy, either deliberately or not. What I learned to do is, okay, that's coming towards me, I'll deflect it. I'll deflect it. I'll deflect it. And if it gets through one of my blockages or deflections, then it's a case of letting life happen through me, not to me. And there's a big difference, isn't there?
Definitely, Paul. Very well put. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
And it's about having that dance with the universe, isn't it? And letting, I have debates with people about, whether she's male or female. It doesn't matter. It's like, she hasn't got a gender. To me, she's, this is only my personal opinion, but I massively believe that, when Dyer talks about the divine femininity, I believe the universe is, we don't call old Mother Nature, the word mother, female. There's no coincidence in that. And so the universe, this beauty, this nurturing, this love, even on a human level, we go back to the days of the caveman. It was the woman, the female, the feminine energy that stayed home, looked after the cave, reared the young, gave love, kept the cave in some kind of order, while the masculine stroke caveman just went out and got food. And to me, there's great learning in that, because yes, things have changed over evolution. Of course they have. But do you know what? For me, that still holds true. So I think it's about learning a new language and a new way of being based on choices to say, okay, universe, show me the signs. I'm ready. I'm able. I want change because of this suffering I'm in.
Yes. Yes. I must say, I don't use the word universe. For me, it's Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And because I am more and more into wanting to see that we're actually in in origin in a pure non-duality.
Yes.
And because in love there is no opposite.
Mm.
And I feel the more I can look that way to the world, it's getting less and less hold on me. I mean, even with disasters in the world and attacks and you know, all the, and don't get me wrong, I sometimes feel that if I say this, people think I am like a heartless so-and-so, but that's not true. The thing is, yes, I do have compassion, but I do not suffer with whomever it concerns.
Mm.
And I think that's very important, because I think it's very, very important to look behind the form and more be aligned with this non-duality. Because to me, that feels as close to God as I can get.
Mm.
And that is my biggest wish, to awake and be more and more awake in that.
Yeah. And you know, the most intimate relationship we have, Caroline, I believe, is with ourselves. And when I say ourselves, that is that sort of God, small g, because whatever that higher source is, and some call it consciousness, some call it awareness, some call it universe, some call it source, whatever, some call it God, Allah, it's different for all of us.
Yes.
But it is that higher power, and the things that happen within, you know, that source, that higher power, that we can't, on a human level, we can't even begin to understand. So for me, it's about, and I can only speak, you know, about my own, I need to get out that little goldfish bowl that I was swimming around and round and round in, thinking I was the big fish. Well, actually, no, you're a little fish in a little goldfish bowl. Get out of that little goldfish bowl and go into life's big oceans and see what life really is. And so on the duality as well, and I love that word, and the non-duality, I absolutely love that, because my acceptance, Caroline, personally, is that I am at one with the universe. She is me, I am her. That is my most intimate, precious relationship above anything. You know, and I've got 3 kids, I've got grandkids, I've got a girlfriend, you know, I've got all this kind of stuff in my life. Yeah. And sometimes people don't understand, well, surely your family are. But with that, me being the very, very, very best I can be, what have I got to give to my family, to my friends, to my lover? I've got nothing to give. So my first responsibility is that most intimate of relationships with, in my case, the universe. And there is no duality, because I am a very, very, very micro part of what she is, and the energy, the vibrational energy that we share. And I liken it to this situation, Caroline, with this gadget here called a mobile phone. And I think we've all got one of these things. And what I say is this, okay, so on a human level, I could be like a mobile phone, running off my own battery. And I'll talk to you, and I'll talk to you, and I'll talk to you. However, just running off my own human battery, sooner or later, that's going to go flat. And then, Caroline, where are you? Caroline, I can't hear you. Caroline, talk to me, please. No good. It needs some external energy. It needs an external source to reinvigorate, repower it, to re-energize and say, okay, now have another conversation, or do another good deed, or do whatever. In other words, carry on living, carry on communicating, carry on loving, growing, and all that kind. And that for me, so this little thing here is just a small version. This is who I am. I'm like a mobile phone, but I need that energy plug-in from an external source, which in my case is the universe. And I always find that useful, Caroline, to say to people when we start talking about duality, well, what does that mean? So, and that's a fascinating, I mean, we could have a great conversation another time, another place, just on duality and non-duality. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, bringing this back to taking responsibility for our own world, I want to, you know, to try and reinforce what I know is your powerful story, because obviously we have the benefit of, not great in-depth conversations, but enough coincidence of energy to know that there is some power in the messages.
Yes.
So if you was to say, Caroline, or if I was to kind of put you on the spot and say, okay, imagine that time when you're leaving that physical form of the body that we know called human life. Mm-hmm. And somebody that was not really had been on the path or the journey with you, and you've got kind of 30 seconds to say, or a minute to say, this is the message, this is my legacy, what I leave to what we know as humankind. What would that be?
Wow. Ooh, that's a question, Paul. Joy, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes. Joy, playfulness.
So encouraging, inspiring people to live a life of joy.
Absolutely.
So within that, and I want to play devil's advocate here, Caroline. So there you are, struggling for last breath and all this. And so you say to me, and I'm an observer, okay, Caroline, you've just told me joy. Now that's took you 5 seconds to say to me joy. There's still another 25. How do I find that joy, woman? Tell me. I want to know. Tell me.
Well, the funny thing is you can go back in your mind and you have definitely encountered joy and love in your life. Everyone has, despite our stories. And the beauty of it is that it is something you cannot see. It is something there is no proof of in the physical form. So it's actually all about going back to, so it's all in my mind.
Yes.
I can choose to go back to that feeling of joy or not.
And that's it, isn't it? Do you know, honestly, it is as simple as that, is it not?
Definitely.
Caroline, is there anything you'd like to add? I mean, that was quite sort of deep and somber. Is there anything I don't know where we really go after that, to be honest with you, but I'm sure we'll find a way if there is a way. But is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of, your powerful message, whatever that may be?
Well, for me, what I really like is I love to work with archetypes. And I think it would be a very nice thing if people who are listening now would like to go and search within themselves, what are certain parts of me that I am living now, and what parts of me are really longing to go out there? Where am I keeping myself or holding myself back, keeping myself small? And where, if I would dare to go, where would I put more energy in?
Yeah.
That's what I really, really want to invite everyone, because we have all so much potential. And for me, the language of the archetypes, like for instance, one of my strongest archetypes is the mermaid. And for me, the mermaid means that I dare to dive in deep. I dare to go to the bottom, and I love you to come with me. And then I can show you it's not as scary as you think it is.
Yeah.
And in the fairy tale, often the sirens or the mermaid are being ridiculed or are being put in a negative frame, because what the mermaids did was they lure the men onto the cliffs, and and then you would drown. Or there was this little mermaid in Copenhagen who so much wanted to be with this prince that she had to lose her tail and have pain walking, only to be in his neighborhood. So, but we don't have to do that. Mm. We don't have to lose anything as long as we dare to dive in and have faith that everything is beauty.
And to kind of go back to the non-duality philosophy, Caroline, one of the things that I've taken from that, I've actually followed a guy called Rupert Spira. First met him in the States 2 or 3 years ago, and his simplicity and his practical nature of how he described this detachment from this human form that we think we are, and how we think we are our mind. And one of the how I've made sense of that in later years is, in subsequent time, shall I say, later years, it was only 2 years ago, is the fact that, our mind is our best friend, but it's not us. This little finger is not me. This right hand is not me. This left elbow, whatever, it's a part of me, but it's not me. Doesn't define who I am. And so it's about having that higher self to be able to look down and observe these human things that we do. It's almost like doing something, but then it's like having a little brother or a little sister who you're watching. And when he or she's in this kind of other behavior, whatever that might be, it's like, okay. And then putting that arm around and say, look, maybe you shouldn't have really done that. Why did you do that? And take the learning out of it and just smile. And that is the epitome of peace for me.
Yes.
To sit still and observe.
Yes. Well, with psychosynthesis, where I come from, I'm trained as a psychotherapist. We call it to disidentify. So I have a body, but I'm not my body. And I have my thoughts, but I'm not my thinking. And it's with feelings and it's with longing, because longing is very powerful.
Yeah.
And can really get us in not so nice places. Because then we get into this feelings of lack and the things that we think we need in order to be happy, etc. But that again is also another topic. My goodness, we could talk for hours, Paul.
What usually happens with on sort of when a guest such as yourself for the first time, we kind of go all over the place.
Yeah.
And then what we do is exactly what we've done. We've identified certain pieces that maybe we need to come back and dig deeper on that, or come back and do another episode and dig deeper on that. And I always ask myself, what learning is there in there? Because obviously it's not just a case of me and you talking for the sake of it, but what learning is there in there for our listeners? And that's why I asked you to sum up a couple of moments ago, Caroline, if what would be your parting message. And I think for me, if I can be allowed to have the last word, it would be simply that we do have choices, and whatever's gone off in the past is the past. Just look at the word past. There's great sort of, great learning in that it's past. So take the learning, just as when you drink, you take the nutrients and you pass the rest as waste. And it's the same with experience. Take the learning, the nutrients, and pass the rest as waste. Because if you keep that toxic waste within you and hang on to that, it will destroy you. As we've started this podcast episode, Caroline, by sharing our stories. So how can people get in touch with you, Caroline, find out a bit more about your practice, the work you do, that kind of stuff?
Oh, they can visit my website. It's called Good Life Guidance. And I'm on YouTube as well with some interviews and some meditations. And then they have to type my name, Caroline Hoek, Hoek.
So that's Good Life Guidance.
Yep.
.com?
Yeah. It's in Dutch and in English.
Excellent. Goodlifeguidance.com. Right, superb. Caroline, it's been an absolute pleasure. And as you say, we've kind of identified one or two things that I think there's a definite need to regroup and do another episode, and we'll dig deeper on that, not least the duality thing, because I think, for the learners, yet again, there's immense progress to be had by understanding this thing, that this duality, this, we serve two masters, and we don't need to serve two masters. We only serve one, which is called ourselves, and that connection to source, and they are as one.
Definitely, Paul. Beautiful.
So there we have it, listeners. I trust and sincerely hope that was useful. The delightful Caroline, obviously, for sharing some real personal stuff there, and you know that's to be massively respected. So yeah, so hopefully things to think about there, and I think I can say with some surety that me and Caroline will regroup. We will have further shared insights, and you know they are for the benefit of the listeners. So until that time, please take care, and most of all, keep loving and keep the faith.